Hello, and welcome to Business and Personal Credit Scores. We want to talk about what a business credit score is and what impact does that have on your business, as well as what impact does a personal credit score have on your business. My name is Brenda Bryant, and I am an instructor at UNR Extension. So I know we're just talking about the fun stuff that you really enjoy. Anyway, by the time we finish, I want you to have a better understanding of why your credit score is important. It's important to you and the growth of your business because it's important to the people who are controlling some of the funds that you may need. So let's get started. Your credit score is a numerical representation of your credit worthiness. I want you to take into consideration your credit score has nothing to do with how well you manage your money. It has to do with how well you manage your credit. So there's a difference between a personal credit score and a business credit score, and they are calculated differently. And they do have an impact on your business. So what is a credit score? Well, from a business standpoint, your range is from 0 to 1610. That's a big range, okay? From a personal standpoint, your range is about 300 to 850. And we're going to talk about what those mean, what those ranges mean, what that range means to you in your business, and what it means to you if you're looking for funds, if you're looking for a loan. So who monitors your credit score? Well, from a business standpoint, you've got Dun & Bradstreet, which you've probably heard about, and I know they've made some recent changes in how they're monitoring. Experian, you've heard about that because Experian also does your personal monitoring of a credit score. Equifax does also your personal and your business monitoring of credit score. And FICO stands for Fair Isaac Corporation. And it's probably the old guy in the neighborhood that has been around monitoring credit scores for quite a while. From a personal standpoint, you also want to add TransUnion. So they look at so you have 3 basic ones for your personal and 4 basic ones for your business. So let's kind of take a look at how your credit score, your personal credit score, is actually put together. Who's doing the looking and what are they looking at? So to come up with a credit score, and we'd already talked about what those numbers are, to come up with a credit score, they have to say what it is that they are scoring. And when I say they, I mean the people who monitor your scores. The way they monitor your scores is how they use this data. The data is compiled by Vantage and by FICO, and they compile it a little differently and they use it a little differently. So let's kind of look into that a little further. From the standpoint of your scoring and how your scoring is done, 2 things are extremely important for both the Vantage score and for the FICO score. Let's look at Vantage first. Vantage is very interested in your payment history. If you look at FICO, you see they're also very interested in your payment history. What does that mean? That means, how have you paid your bills? Have you paid them on time? Have they been late? Have you gotten notices from companies that you owe them money? Have you gotten cancellations from your bills, okay, or from your credit cards? So they really look at that history, because part of that history is telling them whether they think or whether the credit company thinks that you are credit worthy. You are worthy of getting additional credit. So I'm going to go through Vantage first. So they take 32% of what they look at in balancing how they see your credit is being used. They take 32% of that and say, that's the weight of your payment history. Then 23% weight is, how do you use the credit that you have? In the use, what they mean is, if you have a $5,000 credit card and your limit is $5,000, how much of that $5,000 are you using? How much of a balance do you have? Do you have a few $100s on the balance? Or do you have a few $1,000s on the balance? So they're always looking at that utilization and trying to figure out if you have too much credit and that needs to be paid down, or do you have not enough credit that needs to be paid down. They also look at your balances. They look at 15% is the weight of 15% is against your balance. How much do you owe? Now we know, especially with credit cards, and I'll use that because that's probably an example that everybody can understand, because I think most of us have some kind of a credit card. So you know, of course, that if you don't pay your credit card off at the end of the month in full, you then have a balance. Whatever that credit card percent is, that fee, that finance charge, it's going to be attached to that balance. So one of the ways that the scoring is done is, let's take a look at how much you have as a balance and how long do you have that balance. Also look at the depth of credit. For Vantage, that means what kinds of credit do you have? Do you have a credit card? Do you have a mortgage? Do you have a car loan, etc.? So they're looking at the different types of credit that you have. And then 10% is based on how much of this is old credit versus new credit. So if you're just starting out, new credit is something that you'll be getting, but you also notice it doesn't have a lot of weight to it. But what has a lot of weight to it is that payment history. How well are you paying for that credit that you have? And then 7% weight is attached to how much credit do you have left over? Meaning, what is that balance? How are you using that balance? And do you have the funds that can cover what you already have as a credit balance and what you can cover if you're getting new credit? So FICO does sort of the same thing, but their percentages are just a little different. So the payment history is 35%. The amount owed, how much is in that credit? How much do you owe on that mortgage? How much do you owe on that car loan? How much do you owe on that credit card? That amounts for 30%. Now, when you think of that, that's that weight, just those two things alone, that's 65%. When they're looking at, should I or should I not grant you more credit, grant you another loan, grant you another credit card, etc. Then, of course, there's always that length of credit history. That is only 15% that FICO weighs it, whereas that credit history is looking at when you're looking at it from a Vantage standpoint, it's a little bit different. 10% is the types of credit cards that you use, and this is just for the credit cards. So is it a gas card? Is it a department store card? Is it a Visa card or American Express, etc.? And then they both look at the 10% for your new credit. So that's just to give you an idea of when you apply for credit or when you use your credit, someone is looking at this and weighing how you are using that credit and what impact that weight has on future decisions about whether or not someone will say yes to your question of, may I borrow this amount of money? So also when you look at FICO and you look at Vantage, you'll notice that the scoring is just a little bit different. They still go from 30 to 850. Vantage used to be a little different in its range, but I think they're pretty much the same now. But you'll also notice that they weigh them a little differently. Very poor for FICO is 579 and below. Well, for Vantage is 499 and below. If you've ever tried to figure out what your scoring is, you'll know that those little points make a lot of difference. You see the difference in Vantage goes from very poor to fair. FICO goes from very poor to fair to good to very good to exceptional. So you'll notice that they change their wording in how they look at this. They also change the impact. Those words mean something as well as those numbers and the impact of that against your credit score. So let's take a look at business and see how business credit is done. And it's done a little bit differently. If you are a new business owner, you may not have come against this kind of credit scoring before. This is very specific against the business, not against the personal. But if you are a new business owner and you're going in to ask for, let's say you're going to ask for startup funds, it is extremely important that you understand your personal score because that's what the lender is going to be looking at. You don't have business credit score yet. If you've been in business for a while, you probably do have some kind of business credit. And we're going to look at 4 different types. We're going to look at what Dun & Bradstreet does. We're going to look at what Equifax and Experian do. And we're going to look at how FICO looks at the business credit. So when we look at business credit for Dun & Bradstreet, they use a process called Daytex scoring. And that range is between 0 and 100. So they're looking at going from high risk, meaning, no, I don't think you're going to get my money, to low risk, meaning, okay, that looks pretty good. I think we can work with that. So from a high risk standpoint, how are you paying your bills? Well, all of this is about how are you paying your bills. Are you making your payments when they're due? Are you making your payments when they are late? Are you paying ahead of time? And for Dun & Bradstreet and the scoring range that they use, they really like to see not only that you pay them on time, but sometimes that you pay them before time. And then you can also look at Experian. I'm sorry, you can look at Equifax. And Equifax looks at two different scores. It looks at, as you notice, the top one is your credit risk score, and the bottom one is your business failure score. So on the top one, you want a high score. On the bottom one, you want a low score. So the business credit risk score is going to evaluate how likely are you as a business to go into some kind of delinquency or charge off within the next year. The failure score predicts the likeliness that your business is going to fail either through a formal or an informal bankruptcy within the next 12 months. Now, you may not even have thought about this when it comes to your business and how you are handling your money, but somebody else has thought about this. So please take this into great consideration. Your credit score means a lot from a business standpoint. If you look at how Experian is looking at your credit, they score a little differently. So they use what they call IntelliScore, which is a range from 1 to 100. So they're looking at your risk class. They actually classify your risk to say that the higher the risk class, the lower it is from their standpoint that they will give you money. The lower the risk class, the higher it is from their standpoint that you will get the money. So basically what you're looking for from an Experian standpoint is you want to be low risk, but your score needs to be high. Hopefully that is going to help you understand more about what lenders are looking at, because this is not usually a conversation that you have with a lender. And so just understanding a little bit more about what lenders are looking at when it comes to sharing their money with you, because that's what you're asking for when you ask for a loan, then it gives you a better opportunity to be prepared for that conversation. And that conversation is extremely important because if you are not in risk class 1, if your score is not between 76 and 100, you need to have your story ready of why you are not there. What has happened? What made you move out of the low risk area into any of the other areas? And also what FICO does is their SBSS, which is their small business scoring service. So they use both the personal and the business information to compile your score. So you notice that the other companies are using separating the business from the personal, but FICO is using them both. So they'll include your personal information for the business owners who have at least 20% stake in the business. And they will do that for up to 5 people total. So that FICO is also your business financial information, just like what you look at when your profit and loss statement, your balance sheet, the number of employees you have, how long have you been in business, what kind of debts you have, how's your cash flow, etc. So they look at all of that, but they also pepper it with what are the personal scores of the people who run that business. So how is your business credit score determined? Well, it's determined by what's your repayment history? How well do you repay? How are you on time? We've said that before, but that's a big deal. That's a very big deal. What kind of credit do you already have? And what kind of credit are you looking for? Are you successful when you go out and ask for money? Have you applied at other places? Have those places said yes or have they said no? What are the trade credits that you've secured and what are the outstanding court cases that you have? You may not, the last two, you may have none of that, which would be great, okay? But what you want to know is, what the lender wants to know is, again, what is your credit worthiness? So as we go through this, what are the things that you can do to get your credit in a place that makes you proud of it and makes you feel comfortable enough to go ask a lender for funds and makes the lender comfortable enough to say yes? First thing is check your credit report. Now, what is the difference between your credit score and your credit report? Your credit report is your credit history. The companies that do the scoring will take that information and put it into that little matrix that we showed at the very beginning. And it looks at how have you used your credit. And that helps determine how that score gets to what it is. Do you pay your bills on time? Do we sound like we're saying the same things over and over again? And we are, because they are extremely important, whether we're looking at personal credit or whether we're looking at business credits. Paying those bills on time is one of the most important things you can do to improve and maintain a good credit score. Reduce your credit card balances. If you have a $5,000 limit on your credit card and the balance is always wavering between 4 and 5, you need to reduce that. And why do you need to reduce that? Because we looked at the very beginning, one of the things that the lenders look at when it comes to your credit is how much credit are you using and how much credit is there to be used. So if you're constantly using up to your limit, they look at that and go, no, there's really we can't offer any help, okay? So what you want to do is make sure to keep your balances low, and the rule of thumb for that is whatever your credit balance, whatever your credit limit is, that $5,000 we talked about, keep it within your utilization area around 30%. Okay, so that means that I'm not going to be carrying a balance of $4,500 on my $5,000 limit. I'm going to keep it around 30%, and I'm going to keep paying that off. So I can use it, but then I pay it off, and I use it, and then I pay it off. So don't use too much of your available credit. That's keeping it down to that 30%, because keeping your balances low, keeping your utilization down will have a positive effect. But if you don't do that, it has a negative effect on your score. And avoid opening too many accounts quickly. So what happens is, when a lender is looking at your credit history and they're seeing that, let's say you went to buy a car. And so you went to 4 different car dealerships and you looked at cars and they ran a credit review on you. That's 4 different times that they've done that. that says, oh my gosh, wait a minute. We need to kind of step back and take a look at what this person is doing and why they're doing that. Okay. It doesn't mean that your score is bad, but it does mean that you're now taking a hit, because what the lenders are looking at is how many times you've gone out and asked somebody for money. And when you do an application for funding, you are asking someone for money. This one is kind of a myth that you hear. Well, there's a couple of myths that we'll talk about. One of them is keeping old accounts open. You hear people say, no. You get rid of once that account is paid off, you just get rid of it. Well, what lenders are looking at is that history that we talked about. What is your credit history? If you close the account, that ends that history. And now it looks like you haven't had credit for as long as you have. It looks as if you don't have that longevity that they're looking for. So they can look at that history and have a better way of determining whether they feel that you are credit worthy or whether you are a good credit risk. And you want to also, one of the things that lenders look at, and they look, as you can tell, they look at a lot of different things, but they look at different types of credit. Like we talked about credit cards. Do you have any loans? Do you have equipment loans? Do you have a mortgage? Do you have a car payment? Do you have department store cards? So they're looking at all of these different kinds of things because they want to see how you handle the totality of your credit. They want to see how whatever it is that you have said yes to, that you are handling it in a way that says, yes, I am credit worthy. So that's a lot about credit and what business credit looks like, which is very different than what personal credit looks like. But the bottom line is, for you as a business owner, both of them are extremely important. Make sure that you know what your credit is. Please don't go to a lender and let the lender tell you something about your credit worthiness that you don't already know. So, first of all, thank you for coming to the class, and hopefully that gave you some information that will help you as you go out and build credit for your business and also maintain credit for your business and for your personal. So understand that we have a virtual credit, not a credit classroom, we have a virtual classroom. And in our virtual classroom, we have a lot of different classes. We have classes that are both in English and in Spanish, and you can always go to the QR code and go directly to that virtual classroom. Since this is a virtual class, then you should be able to find this fairly easily, but that QR code is there for you. We also have what we call the Bid Life podcast. And the podcast is based on who are people, who are resources, who are companies, who are agencies in Nevada that are here to support the small business community. Who are they? What do they do? And how can we get in contact with them when we need the kinds of services, the kinds of information that they have for us? Again, there is a QR code, and we are on Spotify. We're also on YouTube, and feel free to go and just listen to some of the things that we've talked about that might be helpful to you in your business. So for those of you who are not not clients of the Small Business Development Center, I would highly recommend that you take a look at them. And because that's where you're going to get some one-on-one counseling. They are advisors. They come with a lot of information and a lot of resources. And sometimes you may run across something in your business and you just don't know who you can talk to about that. So this is a great place to go, and you can also have that conversation not only with someone who will listen, but someone who actually has either been a business owner or run a business. So they know what you're going through from experience, as well as they also have degrees in various areas of business. So take advantage of that. Click on Request Advising, and you will get this page. And what you want to do here is just click on the second one down on the left, which says New Client Sign Up. Once you do that, you will get a notice back, you'll get an email back that says, this is the person you've been assigned to. Please make an appointment. Here is their calendar. I highly recommend that you do that right away because they are very busy. And if you wait, then that time that you could have gone in to see them has been taken up by someone else. So do this as soon as you possibly can. If you are already a member of the Small Business Development Center, if you're already their client, you know there are training events that are available. There are all kinds of things that they do to keep in touch with you to make sure that you are moving in the direction that you want to move in. So I want to thank you for taking the time to come to the class. I hope the class has been helpful to you in understanding the power of that credit score and how others are using it to look at you and to make determinations about whether they want to share their funds with you. So please, thank you and have a good day.